And we're back with more NewsTalk Saga 960. So very glad you could join us on this edition of the Marc Patrone Show. Well, this is great. We got Benjamin Dichter on the line. Benjamin, of course, attended Bitcoin Miami, this huge function of anybody who's anybody took part in this function, including billionaire Peter Thiel. Jordan Peterson was there, many others, many of whom believe that Bitcoin is the future. And it's kind of a middle finger to the globalists, the whole idea that we have to centralize everything, that everything has to be under the control of a handful of elitists. While Bitcoin basically is a middle finger to anybody who believes in that. It is maybe the future of the freedom movement, at least in terms of money. And of course, the world revolves around that. And so it's great that we have Benjamin to talk about what happened. Welcome, Benjamin.
It's good to see you, Mark. How are you?
You're looking well rested. You're back on your feet. I've seen some video of you. You're walking again. This is great.
Well, I don't know if I would call it walking. I tried to walk over to the pool, which was maybe 50 meters, to sit on the laptop and do some work, and I didn't make it. Just slight little. I'm on 2 feet, but that's about it. I'm only somewhat bipedal at this point, but I'm getting there.
Right. What did you do to did you break your leg? What exactly did you do to yourself?
I shattered my ankle in the middle of the Freedom Convoy, walking from one hotel to another. And it was in front of the EDC building, where there was clearly no salt, no sand, no nothing, a sheet of ice. I've never seen that. And a whole bunch of people fell as well.
Wow.
So I'm returning the favor to that idiot Watson and filing against the city. So we'll see what happens. If he didn't call me a white supremacist and whatever else bullshit, whatever nonsense that he spewed to the media, but whatever.
Better call Saul,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
All right, well, let's talk about, but you're in Florida right now. And you're
I'm back. I came back last week. Yeah.
All right. So this was a huge function. It got incredible play, lots of attention, lots of talk about it. The usual suspects, the mainstream media, again, raised the specter of the dangers of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. But it was a very different atmosphere at this thing. I got the impression that it was almost celebratory in terms of the attitude of many of the people in attendance. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I think what I would interpret it as the legacy media. They're not mainstream; they're fringe. But the legacy corporate media further destroyed their reputation by not understanding what Bitcoin is, and instead of trying to understand it, just went out of their way to smear it, which is good because nobody trusts them, and whatever they say, usually the opposite is true. So I want to thank them for again sacrificing their reputation for the good of Bitcoin. It was an amazing experience. The panel that I was in was rammed, and when they announced that one of the people involved in the Freedom Convoy in Canada was there, it just erupted with a standing ovation. So there was a lot of support for the convoy down here in the United States. Everybody in the world, and these are people from all over the world. And so we might want to explain this to some of our Canadian politicians that we're a hell of a lot more popular than they are, and they better remember that.
Yeah, of course. You have Jean Charest, of course, going after Pierre Poilievre under the guise
of Canada's Joe Biden, right? Well, let's give him some ice cream. That's about all he's worth.
Well, I mean, the whole thing that they're trying to revise history. They're still. I mean, the convoy is living rent-free in Justin Trudeau's head and others. They can't escape the idea that this thing remains popular, not only in Canada, but around the world. But getting back to some of the things that came out during the Bitcoin Miami was billionaire Peter Thiel, who basically he went after other billionaires, people like the guy who runs Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett. So basically he said that this guy is almost public enemy number one in terms of people who have been disparaging of Bitcoin, who don't understand it. And even if they do understand it, pretend like this thing is the worst thing ever. Let's hear a little bit of what Peter Thiel had to say in his reference to Warren Buffett, whom he includes pretty much number one on the enemies list.
Enemy number one. I think he's sort of. I think the sort of the sociopathic grandpa from Omaha is perhaps the most honest and the most direct in it, and you have to sort of think of it's of course on some level these people aren't always just talking their book. It's sort of they have some sort of institutional bias. It's long, a list of woke companies. It's somehow long this fiat money system, and of course there's always a sense if you're a money manager, you want to pretend that it's complicated to invest, and if all you have to do is buy Bitcoin, that's like ridiculous. All these people are out of business. It's there was a version that's also with gold. They never liked gold either, because if all you had to do was own gold, that's something everybody can do. But there's sort of an institutional bias, a sort of a center-left political bias.
There you go. So there's the element of politics there, Benjamin. This center-left view, the establishment view, right? That Bitcoin is bad and you should stay away from it. But is anybody listening to those guys anymore? I mean, I got the sense in listening to some of the speeches that Bitcoin is the future, and it's kind of the youth-oriented thing. I mean, that's why I refer to this guy as the sort of the gerontocracy, him and others and Munger and the rest of them who hate Bitcoin. But he's kind of suggesting that it's the old generation, that they're on their way out eventually, and that the new generation is all in on crypto. Is that what your sense is?
Yeah, and I would also say, with regards to Warren Buffett himself, he missed Amazon, he missed Google, he missed Apple, he missed anything in tech. He has no concept of the tech world and how it functions, which is odd in the era of the technological revolution. But so I take what he says with a grain of salt. And if I want to buy a railroad to obstruct Canada's oil and gas industry, then he's the one I would go to. Otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, knows nothing. And it's not that hard to spend half a day to understand how Bitcoin works, and that's a deflationary asset. No one controls it. It's self-governing. But either he's too lazy to learn, which I don't believe. I don't believe Warren Buffett is lazy. So he's intentionally deceptive, which is just another reason not to listen to him.
What do you make of this push by some jurisdictions, like those people like Pierre Poilievre, who came out recently and said, we think Canada should be a center for Bitcoin? And that also drew some fire by, Jean Charest, who said, this guy doesn't get it. How is that going to stop inflation? Did that surprise you that the front runner in the race for the Conservative Party of Canada and the leadership of that party would say that, hey, this is maybe sound money, and this is a possible solution to those who are starting to lose confidence in fiat currency?
Well, I mean, Charest is. I think one has to decide, and it's difficult. It's a close race between who he's a shill for more, the World Economic Forum or the communists, or both. And the fact that anyone in LEOC and the National Council allow him and that other idiot, Patrick Brown, who was involved in that whole ballot stuffing scandal, should be automatically dismissed from even participating in that. It should be that whole thing. Oh, yeah, we know you want an application. We'll just give us a few weeks. But the fact that there's no one with a spine in that party to say, you know what, we don't want this globalist shill, is really disheartening. And that's everything that's eating away at the Conservative Party. Pierre, on the other hand, some of the people on my team, or should I say we work together, a lot of us within the Bitcoin community, were reaching out and working with Pierre and talking to him and educating him and giving the basics and knowledge of Bitcoin. And kudos to him for having an open enough mind to say, well, let me understand how this works. Because Pierre has always been, if you follow his career, and there's good and bad in this, he's always been like a small tax incentive sort of guy. I think that's how you win over voters, which may or may not be true. But Bitcoin is perfectly in line with people who have that mindset, and I give him credit for being able to realize what the benefits are of a deflationary asset that no institution controls. One of the big potential benefits out of this is this will usher in an era of collateralized debts. And right now, well, what's one of the big things destroying the world is debts that are non-collateralized and defaults and all that sort of stuff. So there's so much that Bitcoin can provide to the world and the world economy. And, I give him credit for being one of the early politicians to realize that this is the case. There's a candidate for Senate that was speaking at the Bitcoin conference by the name of Josh Mandel. And I managed to meet him, and he was speaking about exactly this, how, we need to get more people in the United States beyond just Senator Cynthia Lummis and a few other congressmen. And we need to build a caucus of people who understand finance 2.0, meaning Bitcoin. And we need to bring the world into the modern era, and that will help alleviate a lot of our, economic woes over the long term. So, there we go. So Sheree, I don't know. I look at Sheree and I see Joe Biden needing a haircut, missing his ice cream.
Speaking of politicians who are big fans of crypto, or Bitcoin rather, here is the mayor of Miami, Francis Suarez, talking a little bit about how there's a need to integrate Bitcoin into every aspect and fabric of society. Let's listen.
The second thing that we need to do this year is we need to integrate Bitcoin into every aspect of our society, every part of the fabric of our society. We need to make sure that you can go into a convenience store and buy a Snickers with a Satoshi. And the last thing that we need to do is we need to unleash the macro power of Bitcoin. Bitcoin has the power to democratize and to create wealth for the unbanked and for the poor in our community who are getting decimated by inflation and government spending that has gone rampant. If you have a bank account today, guess how much interest you're earning? 0. And it's worse than that. It's worse than that because of inflation. Someone is sticking a hand in your bank account and taking money out because the purchasing power of your fiat currency, the fiat currency of the world, is being diminished. And so we have to lean into this generational wealth creation opportunity so that the poor in our community don't get left behind like they always do when government intervenes.
Well, this guy's a real powerful speaker, Benjamin, and he talks like your typical libertarian, and he's not a nobody. He's the mayor of Miami, a major city in the United States, and here he is touting Bitcoin as the future.
Yeah, he's also very well respected in political circles. He's, he didn't just come out of nowhere to become a mayor of Miami. He's been involved in politics most of his life. And what's interesting is, and this is, North Americans tend to not understand this, he's Cuban. And if you want to put an end to global authoritarianism, that sort of nonsense, that creep that is going around the world, Bitcoin can very easily be part of the solution, at least the monetary part of the solution. And, I was in South America just before the conference. Like I mentioned, I just came back to Miami. And, these are economies where they have a history of currency collapses and rampant inflation and stuff. So for those people, it's not difficult to convince them that, hey, here's a deflationary asset that where you can store and protect your wealth. It's like, okay, great, I want some. And you go around to various cities throughout Latin America, and you see Bitcoin is being used very frequently. And in fact, one of the legacy media stations or programs, I don't know if it was 60 Minutes or one of the other ones, around the time of the conference I didn't see it, I just heard about it at the conference, I was so busy. They did a whole episode on El Zonte, and El Zonte is the little town in El Salvador that started the spark, which led to Bitcoin becoming legal tender. And there is a massive Latin American economy, I can tell you now through contact in the central bank there, that will be adopting Bitcoin as legal tender as well. So for us in Canada and the US, until recently, we're, except for the period during the 70s, we're really starting to become aware of the dangers of inflation. But this has been an ongoing problem throughout Latin American society for decades. It's not new to them. And somebody's a direct descendant of people who had to flee Cuba. And you want to take Cuba back, well, give people a monetary policy that no government controls. And those are the steps to freedom. And that's exactly what my talk was about at the Bitcoin conference as it related to the Freedom Convoy.
Benjamin Dichter joining us in Saga 960, talking about the time he spent at Bitcoin Miami. And that's where I want to go next, is exactly what you talked a little bit about. Where did you go? I mean, obviously there was also some talk. I know I saw part of your speech, which you thank you for kind of referencing me as well, throwing me into there as one of the people that you've been trying to educate in the media.
You're an excellent student, Marc.
Because I don't know anything.
When you do your homework. Yeah.
But being open to it is the start,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you're dismissing it out of hand, then I think you're doing it a grave disservice, and you're doing a grave disservice to yourself. But talk a little bit about what you told the crowd at Bitcoin Miami when you spoke to them.
Well, I mean, we discussed the Freedom Convoy and how if it weren't for Bitcoin, none of the truckers who had gone and sacrificed a great deal to be in Ottawa, none of them would have gotten any money. And as you know, our government went full banana republic, Venezuelan style, and blocked, first the local government apparently lobbied GoFundMe with that piece of direct police chief who was forced to resign, and tried to lobby GoFundMe to return the money because whatever smear, hateful, racist, bigoted, homophobe, whatever, the whole the usual package of smears. And then Doug Ford, let's remember this, Doug Ford. So remember this in June. He's no conservative. Don't vote for him. Doug Ford got his attorney general to file an injunction against people who donated to hard working class truckers in Ottawa it was costing them thousands of dollars and their livelihood to be there just to support freedom. Freedom from Doug Ford. I'm going to say it one more time. Doug Ford, not just Justin Trudeau. Very important. So perhaps Jim Kalahari's and New Blue is the solution for people, by the way. A little plug there for you. So I spoke about that a little bit just in brief, and the fact that it was, decentralized money. It was Bitcoin that allowed the Bitcoin community to come together and to distribute money to these truckers. And this was, I believe, will be viewed as an historical event in the future, as the first proper use case for Bitcoin. We always talk in the Bitcoin community about, these hypotheticals and these theoreticals of when a government becomes tyrannical. And yes, that happens in many third world dictatorships, second world dictatorships, sort of thing. But now it's actually happened in the modern developed West. And, we all collectively want to thank Justin Trudeau for being the most epic chief marketing officer and explaining and showing the world exactly why Bitcoin is vital to your freedom and your sovereignty. And without that, you don't have it, because your dollars, they're not yours. They're the government's dollars on loan to you.
And what's the status now of the freezing of the accounts? Where are you at with that? Because there's still millions. Some of that money was returned to the donors, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think was it the GoFundMe money? Is that was at least started to? They had to be kind of coerced into doing so, and then of course the Give, Send, Go accounts were doxxed by this whack job character who apparently is not facing any investigation. The cops are not looking at this guy, or I mean,
Yeah.
excuse
Who
me.
describes himself as a cyber terrorist, his own words, yet he's not investigated. It's funny how that works. I do know from some people on the inside of the Liberal Party, because despite what Trudeau wants others to believe, I was in contact with some people in that party that are ready to throw him under the bus, and they want his career over. They want him out. And that's why he did this deal with Jack Mead, because those 30 backbenchers have now just been replaced with 30 lunatics in the NDP, and I don't see this lasting. But yeah, I don't know. It's crazy what's gone on right now. We're at the status where all the money that wasn't returned, which is approximately $5 million, is in escrow with a bankruptcy trustee who's working with the lawyers on this class action suit. Some class action suit from a Liberal Party insider, by the way, who has some foreign ties from some, another one of these fake organizations that's all about victimization and painting a fake narrative. So it's all political. And I heard from these, people inside the Liberal Party who were concerned that Jerry Butts started to get worried when he saw the GoFundMe hit around $300,000. Then he saw it hit $500,000. He got more worried. 700, even more. Apparently, at $1 million, he stopped sleeping at night. And I want to know if he started drinking again. Did the Freedom Convoy turn him into an alcoholic again? I'm not sure, and maybe that's why he reacted so aggressively, because we all know who actually runs that office, and we know it's not Trudeau, Jerry. We know who's pulling the strings, because people in your own party told me. So this was an aggressive and deliberate politicized attack that is reminiscent of Hugo Chavez's Venezuela. It is completely unacceptable in Canada, and we need to push the next government, God willing, this government falls in the next election, and we have an idea when that election will be. We need a royal commission in Canada, a full investigation, and we can't just have an investigation and sweep things under the rug like Canada always does. No, that has to stop. We need full prosecution authority. These people need to be held accountable, and if they did something in violation of the Charter and egregious laws, they need to be punished. They need to go to jail. It's time for Canada to start sending its politicians who behave like third world dictatorships, throw their asses in jail. They've done it in various other countries when this sort of garbage has happened, and it's time for Canada to step up to the plate and do the same.
I'm interested in this group of Liberal backbenchers that you've been speaking to, and the fact that they are ready to throw Justin Trudeau under the bus, but they haven't done it yet. So what are they waiting for? And was the deal with Jugmeat basically, did that render any move moot?
That's why he did the deal. So those people I was speaking through a couple of people in that party. I didn't speak to, all 30, I'm still not within the party. I'm not within the cult. Okay, fine. But they understood that I wasn't a threat to them. And they understood that they could kind of channel some information back and forth. And that's why he did the deal, because those people are very, very upset with the direction of the party. They'll play the line because politics is what politics is, which is why I'm not a huge fan of it. And people got to play on the team, and they got to work through some difficult channels behind the scenes. But they were ready to. That's why they reacted so negative. Look at it this way: you had 30 MPs that were that were starting to build a little bit of a coalition within their party to say it's time to get rid of Justin. He's destroying our party. And then, on my end, I had 57, 60 NHL players that were about to get on their private jets and fly into Ottawa, and they wanted to go on stage and talk directly to the truckers and show their support for them. Like, this was gone beyond a point of control, and that's why he turned into Hugo Chavez. Or what's the other guy he doesn't like? Putin. He did exactly what would happen in Putin or Ukraine. By the way, both those countries do the same sort of thing with their citizens. So it's quite disgusting how they behaved. It is what it is.
Wow, that tells me that if it had gone on longer, that it would have gained more steam. So it was crushed maybe just before all these other people were going to show up, as you said, all these NHL players. I mean, is it possible that they crushed this thing, they stopped this thing before it did end up overthrowing the government? I mean, it wasn't. Marc, it was never the intention. There was never an intention to overthrow the government. But could they see the writing on the wall that if they didn't do something, that they were toast, that they were going to have a massive rebellion in their own ranks?
Marc, the reason we were able to raise $10 million and then $10 million again, or 12 million, whatever went up to, and then another million or something and change in Bitcoin, is because this was people's votes. And that's what Jerry Butts, that's why he was freaking out, because he understood this is the actual opposition. These are the people he should be really afraid of. These are the voters. That's why people didn't care. I'll throw as much money at this as possible because I have no representation in Canada anymore. That's opposition. And, I have friends inside the CPC, that, and I have friends in other parties. I got to tell you, the biggest losers in all of this was the Conservative Party in Canada, because we went there for two purposes: to end the mandates and to end the passport, the data tracking passport. That's it. That's the only reason we were there. And all Prime Minister Blackface Diversity had to do is end the damn mandates. That's all he had to do. Very simple. But he wouldn't. He couldn't, because he's a child. He's a spoiled child who always gets his way. And the Conservatives, all they required, can I be a little brash here? I apologize. I'm going to be a little brash here, Marc. All it required is one functioning testicle in that entire caucus to come outside in front of the police and say, go home. This is a peaceful protest. Leave. We're going to talk to your psychopath of a police chief, but this police movement ends now. And then you know what would have happened? Justin Trudeau would have been screwed. The reason we always have Justin Trudeau, that loser for a prime minister, is because the losers in the Conservative Party. And for years, I've been screaming at them from the inside, grow a spine. Stop focus grouping every opinion. Grow a testicle. That's it. They had it perfectly lined up. So I keep telling my friends here in Miami who came from all over the world, so frustrating, and saying, how come Canadians like Justin Trudeau so much? He's such an idiot. How come they keep electing him? And I said, because the Conservatives are your nerdy loser hall monitors from school that no one likes. And they won't listen to us, to those of us who have a little bit of strength, who can teach them how to fight. It's infuriating. And then the Freedom Convoy ends and they all start rolling out their banners and hashtags of leadership. Where were you? Where were you in front of the trucks, Mr. Leadership? It's so infuriating.
Well, you had Poilievre, who came out, Pierre, who did come out to talk to the truckers, who did show some support for them. And now he's being attacked and vilified by his main competitor running for the leadership of the party, saying that he's
not enough. No. I'm not going to get him off the hook. Look.
Okay.
I hope he wins. He made a statement to the CBC, which was great. And then the same idiots I'm talking about who are running his campaign, who tell everybody else in the world, well, you don't know how politics works. Well, you don't know how to win an election. You've had one majority government in the entire history of your party. You have no clue what you're doing because it's the same revolving door of losers in that party. And unfortunately, Pierre's had to cut a deal with some of them who are on his team, but they're pathetic. So I hope they don't cost him, this leadership, and then cost him the election again. Because if he doesn't do something, that's what's going to happen. And we'll end up with Trudeau again. And you know what? It'll be the Conservatives' fault yet again, because they don't listen to those of us in the party, and they don't listen to those of us who are members who vote. How's that for... I'm annoyed.
A rant?
I apologize for the rant, man. It's just like...
No, don't apologize. That was great.
Because I had this conversation so many times at this Bitcoin conference because everybody was asking me, what is happening again? It's pretty simple. Conservatives are a bunch of losers. So hopefully they will wake up and find some strength. Like, you know how many times I was on the phone with people in the conservative friends of mine in that party saying, get me in touch with Digicom. I will help you. I will explain to you how to do modern messaging, how to, grab the momentum and use it. But no, because everybody knows everything. So anyways, back to Bitcoin.
Well, I maybe they're the ones propping up Justin Trudeau. Who knows? Maybe they're
I don't think it's that conspiratorial. No. I don't think that's what it is.
They're just losers. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. But what you're saying on your onset when you said this is a very different Bitcoin conference, It was because it was the first Bitcoin conference where the headliners were not non-Bitcoiners. Like obviously the usual guys were there who are very, very influential. Greg Foss, Jeff Booth, all these people have been in the space for many years. The early hedge fund investors who got involved in Bitcoin, they were all there. But JP Spears was there as a, not only doing commuting routine, but also MC. Jordan Peterson was there. There were many other people from the space that were not from the space, who are new to Bitcoin, who are now communicating to very large audiences the importance of Bitcoin and the value that it adds. And it was amazing.
All right. Benjamin, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
All right, brother.
Benjamin Dichter coming to us from beautiful and the free state of Florida, where I happen to be right now. And I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening to that. Let's take a break. Back with more on NewsTalk Saga 960 and the Marc Patrone Show.